Hey, what's going on, guys? Thank you for tuning in to Connected by Creatures tonight. Zach and I are beyond happy to have an amazing guest, and I don't want to waste any time. So here you are, guys, Mr. Riley Jimison.
What's up? Thanks
Dive
for having
into
me,
it.
guys.
Dude,
Yeah,
thanks for
most
making
definitely.
some time. We appreciate you.
Of
I know you've
course.
had a hectic day already, it sounds like, so I'm glad this kind of all worked out the way
Yeah.
that it did, man. We already knew, like Bradley and I, literally when you jumped in, we were talking about, we were like, man, this is gonna be one of those ones that it's gonna go by too fast. There's gonna be too much good information. Like probably gonna have to rewatch it myself again after the fact. Because it's just you're just that type of guy, man. I can tell, like we have all of us have that good energy, and I think we can all talk. So let's dive into it and kind of get an idea of a little bit of your background, man. For
Yeah.
anybody that may or may not know you, I'm sure everybody
Yeah.
does.
Oh, I don't know about that. I'm not at that level yet. I mean, that'd be cool to get there one day because that means I can, help, spread the love even further. But yeah, reptiles really came into my life. I was 8 years old when I really started developing a fascination for animals. My mom always kept animals in the house. My parents split up when I was 5, and so I lived with my mom primarily. And so at my mom's house, we had like dogs, rabbits, cats. She always had horses ever since before I was born. She's always had horses, and then
Yeah,
like we've had birds in the house, lizards, snakes, all this, everything exposed super
yeah.
early, and I kept getting in trouble as a kid. So my mom would take me to the horse stables with her, so I wasn't home alone playing with matches or whatever. And true story. And and so I would go out and like hop the barbed wire fences and go down the muddy hills in the middle of these valleys and catch toads or find snakes or whatever. And so when I was 8, I told my parents I wanted a snake, and so they're like, "Well, you got to prove it." And so for a year, my dad would come out every week, and we'd go to the library, and I'd study snakes if I didn't have homework. And so for a year, I was going through it and just showing them, like, "Look, I want reptiles. Like, I'm
Yeah,
interested." And after a year, they finally got me my first snake, and it was a California king snake. And I
I
kept it
love that,
probably
man.
horribly wrong. I kept it in a 20-gallon tank with a sliding lid, and back then they didn't have
Yeah.
latches, so the thing got out all the time. Um, which is ultimately how I lost it indefinitely. But
As you do.
I kept it on blue and green play sand. I didn't know any better.
Because
Yeah, I
right.
mean that's what my dad brought home, and I was like, sweet, let's do this. And yeah, so I had a snake for several years as a kid. He would get out periodically, and then one time, the most notable time, he was gone for like a month, and my neighbor screamed, and we ran through her front door, and there she was in her kitchen in the back door screaming because a snake had literally fallen off of her roof on the eave over the back doorstep, landed on her arm, and fell, and she freaked out, and I looked down, and there was my snake.
Oh man.
So after that, always had an interest in reptiles. My brother even at one point had leopard geckos. We had a bearded dragon
Older or
that
younger?
younger by 19 months.
Just curious. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So he's not into reptiles. He ended up going into soccer and doing some professional soccer for a couple of years, and
Oh
um,
wow.
but he's always been an animal lover. Like he
Yeah.
loves all animals, no matter if he doesn't know them or not. He's one of those naive people that won't like say something that's very like disgusted or prejudiced necessarily against an animal because he still understands it's an important thing, but he just might not know what it is. But
Yeah.
so we totally like split off on different ends on that lifestyle, and yeah, and then I kind of drifted away from it in like high school and college. I was skateboarding for a really long time, and that was my main focus. So I was like never home, so I couldn't take care of animals. Um,
Yeah.
and then when I started getting into zookeeping, the first time so it was like right after college, I was in Santa Barbara, and I remember I'd just gotten hired full time as an apprentice keeper in like 2012. And the first time I had to put an ankle that I'd torn 3 ligaments and tendons and all that stuff in. First time I had to put that foot in a boot and then hop over fences and lift tortoises and stuff at work. I was like, these two paths will not work together. So I stopped skateboarding for a long time, and I've recently picked it back up because it's good activity for me. But so I made reptiles my career just by pure luck. My mom really forced me to like just go see what the zoo has to offer. I got in through volunteering, did that for a year and a half, and excelled at it, working with a lot of birds and reptiles, and then got onto the reptile team and was there for 6 years. Moved up to Sacramento. In between getting the job out at the Sac Zoo, I had to work construction for a bit. And then I was in the reptile house at the Sac Zoo for a year and a half before I decided that was no longer for me. And I was kind of done with zoos for the time. And it just happened to be at the right time. I had already worked a little bit part-time for the shop on my weekends. And he was just getting ready to move into the new building, renovate it, and he needed a manager. So I jumped ship, and here I am almost 6 months later, been managing the whole reptile shop, the retail end, the retail collection, as well as the monitor breeding and the snake breeding room and stuff, with the help of a couple of employees. So very fun.
Man, I think that's
that up into such a nice package for the rest, like that whole story, because I know that like your story for a lot of people is like the dream, like, oh man, this guy, like so many people grow up think they want to be a zookeeper, and you did it, which is huge, man. But I think what I hear and what a lot of people probably don't think about is like all of the shit and hard ass stuff that you had to deal with, in between all that, again, like working injured and starting from the bottom and just understanding that like you're not just going to walk in and apply for a job. Like you literally like worked from basically like an apprentice standpoint, it sounds like, and worked your way up. But
I worked for free for a year and a half as a volunteer, doing exactly what everybody else did, and it was necessary. I mean, I wouldn't have learned the foundations if I hadn't have done all that.
Sure.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that kind of draws me to wanting you specifically on here, is because you're one of those people that you can bridge the gap between, the zookeeper and the person, the private sector. And I think, and I know that, we've had this conversation with Brian, with Cusco about that separatism between, the zoo side of people and, the private sector. And I feel like you have the knowledge that you can share to people about both sides of that. And man, to me, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because anytime people bring that up, it takes me back to when I was halfway through my time at Santa Barbara and really understanding that divide. Because at the very same time I was starting my zoo career, I had just found out about the private sector and started going to every Pomona show, Orange County show, working every reptile show possible with my local reptile shop. Like I accrued enough vacation time at the zoo where anytime a show was going on, I would take the necessary days off. So I'd still be getting paid from the zoo. And then I'd go down to or up wherever in California. I did like 15 shows a year for a couple of years with this shop, and I made seriously good money just like working, selling my own animals, things like that, and networking. And so I really, as soon as I found that world and was living in the zoo world, I realized I had my feet in both pools, and I wanted to somehow find common ground, because both sides really had a lot of taboo perspective of the other. And some is warranted, some is definitely not, on both sides. And I will say, as far as reptiles are concerned, the zoo world does it best when they have somebody leading that particular ship at whatever facility that has the support of their faculty behind them. There are certain individuals like Dennis McNamara out at Virginia. He's an amazing individual. He's been in zoos for like 20 years, and the zoo is fully behind him. And his success translates into a great reptile collection at the zoo and education and everything. And he also lives on both sides of that fence in the private sector, and it's really difficult. And so over the years, I was like, how can I bridge that gap? How can I like bring these two sides together? And I didn't realize it, but I had been doing it all along just by being involved in both sides. And it's kind of interesting that you bring that up, because it's always been important to me to somehow bridge the gap, because there is so much unnecessary tension.
Well, and I'll tell you, Riley, I don't think a lot of people even necessarily realize it, and I think that's a lot of why it exists to begin with. It's the literal reality of an actual ignorance, where like I almost didn't even realize that like the what's the word for it? The scholar side of this hobby.
Yeah, like the academic side
of reptile
Right.
keeping. Yeah, the academic side. That's the word I was looking for. The academic side. I kind of almost didn't realize that there was that kind of negative outlook, but it makes sense. And you know, what I mean? Like once I heard somebody talk about it for the first time, I was like, well, of course there is. You know.
Yeah.
Because even I sometimes look at you know what we do from a private keeping standpoint. I'm like, what are we doing? You know,
Sure.
There's some things that are maddening, and I'm sure obviously you're aware of what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think a lot of people are probably in my boat, where we don't even realize like that there's people out there that are, you know, we just don't think about it, and I think that's pretty clear based on a lot of things that people do and post publicly, like you know, that they don't understand that by you doing that or you showing something in a certain way, that it might actually be looked upon totally differently by people that don't have your viewpoint. And I think you can say that about humanity, but we won't get into that. But you know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
I think that a lot of times, you know, a lot of keepers, we don't think about that aspect of just not like, okay, we know this is fine, but like there's a way to broadcast it, a way to show things, a way to talk about stuff, a way to carry ourselves, I guess, and present ourselves that would certainly benefit our case.
It takes
and that goes for both sides again.
Yeah, it takes a thoughtful, aware, and open-minded approach on either sides just to hear the perspective, because it's all about perspective, right? The zoo folks might not necessarily have a perspective of what goes on in the hobby sector or whatever, and vice versa as well. And I see that there's a disconnect, 100%. There's a huge disconnect. But it's not unwarranted because of the history. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
We don't have the regulations and the protocols that zoos and certain standard like AZA accredited zoos hold themselves to. And they hold themselves to those standards for good reason. It's basically for the benefit of the animals and guest experience, conservation, education, outreach, all these different things, right? And so it's not from a bad place, but they're sitting on their side of the fence, and they just see the consumer angle of it all. And the consumption to them is a threat to the work they're doing in conservation. And in some cases, they're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
And in the past, it was way worse. And it still goes on now. It's just much more secretive because everything is so public now. So that has to be.
Yeah.
So it's all about perspective. And, you know, I think there's more and more people coming into the hobby, and that includes folks in the zoo world. There are a lot of people that I meet in the zoo world that have pet bearded dragons, ball pythons, so they have an understanding, you know, so it's just perceived as really extremely negative sometimes on both sides. And there are folks in the private sector that think zoos are snobby and elitist and this and that. And there probably are people like that in there. I mean, there has to be.
Experience.
Yeah, and that's not wrong either, but it doesn't mean that the whole, you know, zoo world is like that. So there's so much more progress to be made on terms of coming to common ground with that. But as long as both sides are focused on doing the right thing for themselves, eventually it'll happen. So,
and I mean, to your credit, you know, perception is reality. And it's from either side, like the perspective that you're saying, that perception becomes, you know, enthralling, and it just wraps that person up in, you know, your perception is always going to be whatever, you know, that is your reality.
And people oftentimes, we're very selfish, you know.
Of course.
So, like,
we don't even realize it half the time.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's what I mean. It literally, you put it very well. You said it all with just the word perspective. Everything that I was trying to say before, you were like, yeah, it's just perspective. I'm like, yeah, exactly. You know, in one word. Yeah. That's 100% it. And like you said, you know, it's like we can judge, you know, the way that they do things or whatever, but like you said, all it takes is just stepping outside your own head for 2 seconds and thinking about, okay, but why? Because there's always a why. Yeah. Whether it's what we're doing or what they're doing, there's always a why. they don't have the freedom to just play with things the way that we do, you know, and like experiment with something, you know, like the example that popped into my head was like Billy deciding that like I'm going to take these 250 ball python babies and I'm going to test them with no belly heat. You know, like they can't do stuff like that, and that's just from a husbandry standpoint. They can't 100%. Do stuff like that at zoos. Like it's it's regulated out of option. You know, unless, you know, in other words, there's just red tape involved, which there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But like you said, I think both sides they can learn from one another. And I don't want to harp on this all night, but I just
every facility is different
feel
too.
Very important for me to bring up.
Every facility is different. They all behave and act independently, but behold themselves to certain guidelines. But ultimately, the people involved are as individual as us three sitting here. So you can see that reflected in the collection and in the priorities each facility has. And you know, zoos tend to excel at the medical progress of things, working with universities and coming up with new treatments and as well as research and funding for conservation, whereas the private sector tends to excel at figuring out captive propagation, husbandry methods and techniques, as well as oftentimes discovering new species, working with just independent researchers or folks at universities. So, you know, it could be argued that the private sector is more progressive than zoos as far as reptiles are concerned. But there are facilities that are exceptions to that rule. You know, folks like St. Augustine Alligator Farm is one that comes to mind. Exceptional, Class A, like progress of progress right there with they specialize. And that's the other thing. Some zoos, when they specialize and they focus on a few things, they just excel. And those are great facilities. And there's a lot of them.
And that makes sense. Sure.
Yeah.
Because you know, I mean that's only logical. You know, one zoo will have a better reptile house than another, or
of course,
this zoo will be known for this particular program, and that just comes down to staff and what their focus is and just what their skills are.
Sure,
so that's cool.
Absolutely.
Question that I have, just kind of like, I guess transitioning a little bit, like, what do you think that for you as a keeper, like, what are some examples of some things that maybe you took from that? Like the zoo side, and you've kind of incorporated into your own way of keeping. Like, are there habits or you know, processes that you've taken from one and you now use in the other, or do things different as a result of having worked in that sector?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The first couple that come to mind, I'm very anal retentive about my disinfection protocol throughout most of the year. The exception being when I've got females breeding, I like to let them kind of stay a little bit messy, have their pheromones and scent. Yeah, it's a little it's hard. It takes every ounce of me not to clean what I'm looking at right here. But yeah, so I'm very good about my disinfection protocols. I learned a lot of that through the years in the zoo, disinfecting my tools in between animals, contact time, what solutions can I use, which ones are harsher, which ones are safer, certain metals that can corrode in that. And then the other one is quarantine. You know, I've never had issues with animals coming out of quarantine in the zoo because it was done so thoroughly, blood testing, fecal sampling, like everything, just to the umpteenth degree, which is, I will say, very expensive and pretty unfeasible for the common keeper. So what I've learned to do is take as much of that quarantine protocol and make my version of it as best and thorough as I can, and use as much of that as is reasonable and feasible. And it's just it's made a big difference in how I keep my animals. I have very few health issues whatsoever, and you know, I don't know. I really pay a lot of attention to my animals too. In the zoo field, you check every enclosure and you get eyes on every animal every day. You're constantly visually assessing health, things like that. So you learn to see these subtle changes in your animals. So I have eyes on all of my animals pretty much daily. So I've got a very heightened sense of attention to detail as a result of learning what to look for in zoos.
Sure.
That's that's a really intense thing to think about, because being in that element to where every animal that you're looking at daily is on display daily to the public. So you kind of have to get in that regiment of making sure that you're inspected, because the second you have something out of place with that animal or something wrong, the public's just going to shit all over you and what you're doing. To be able to bridge that over into your private keeping, when it's not so much of other people looking at it, you having that sense of, well, if I can keep these animals this well and up to this level, then I can do that at home with my animals. And I really like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
To kind of bridge over into the next little segment, next little area. I know that, you're into a lot of the Morelias and stuff like that, but if you could tell our audience, what animals that you're working with personally and the things that you're into.
All right, let's see if I can do this without forgetting anything. If I just go around the room, I think I won't forget anything. I have black-tailed cribos, Brazilian rainbow boas, corn snakes, Dumerils boas, Macklot's pythons, a bunch of carpet pythons, Madagascar giant hognose, a Savannah monitor, African bullfrog, Russian tortoise. I just got a baby mandarin rat snake.
Nice.
Just happened. And
you're gonna get Jeremy all excited. This guy's always here, cure constrictors. He's gonna be all pumped up.
It's a little baby that wasn't feeding, so I got her from a friend who's a breeder locally. He's like, here, if you want her, give her a shot. She's all yours, sort of thing. Yeah. So I'm gonna give her a shot. And then the animal that I think is kind of like the creme de la creme of my collection is my Papuan python, my Apodora.
Not yet. We'll get to that one.
I just had to include him on the list.
Really
footnote.
We're gonna get to that.
About that one, man.
Yeah, Jeremy just popped in and said, "Did I hear Asian colubrids?" He does a lot of work with blue beauties and Pataeus and
nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, Jerome. Is comments. Jerome, if you're not familiar with Riley and his collection, literally just type his name into YouTube or Google. This guy Riley keeps some amazing stuff, and he keeps it all very, very well. We weren't just hyping people up to say that we're excited to have him on. In terms of keeping reptiles,
I did forget all of my tarantulas and scorpions and vinegaroons. I got some of those.
Those things creep me out. They got so many little appendages and just so much. I don't know. I can't.
I love spiders, bro. I love them. I love tarantulas.
I'm trying to get there. When I was a kid, it's so weird because it's not that I have a problem with spiders. They kind of freak me out.
Oh, I don't blame you.
I think there's some part of me that's wired that way. But I'm not afraid of them. I just don't.
Dude, they used to scare the bejesus out of me.
But because of that, I want to get one, and so I do plan to get one. I want to get a tarantula. I've debated on getting a little jumping spider. I've seen so many people talk about those
are awesome.
I'm like, man, they do. They look really cool. They seem pretty chill for the most part. So.
Yeah. I held my first one at the Reptarium, and I kind of think I'm going to pull the trigger on getting.
I saw that, dude. You did good. You handled that like a champ.
Yeah, you did. You did great, man.
Yeah. If you guys ever decide, hit me up. I'll tell you some really good species that, tend to be super docile and tolerant of handling right off the bat.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll link up with you probably this week because it's something I've been thinking. Bradley's probably heard me mention it 10 times in these podcasts at this point that I'm going to get one. I want to get one. So I might pull it.
You should. They're fun, man.
I'll be in touch.
That's one of those things where it pops up on every show that we do, either tarantulas, and at some point we'll talk about turtles. Turtles and tortoises always pop up.
Nice.
But no, man. One thing that I'm really respectful of you is the way that you keep track on all the lineage of your carpet pythons and everything. And I wanted you to kind of talk about some of that because I think people aren't as aware of what's going on with the lineage of their animals that they have and everything. And what you guys are doing, I know there's several of you that are doing it, but it's amazing how much you follow that lineage.
Yeah. So there's some folks that excel at that information. Nick Mutton is kind of known as the The one of the biggest breeders in the country who is devoted to purity and maintaining the information as far back as possible. So, and he publicizes all of the lineage for every pairing and every offspring on his website because he produces so much. Instead of everybody hitting him up for it, they can literally just go to the website, find the pairing their animal got from, and download that PDF. And it goes back generations and generations. And the reason why
That's awesome.
It's such an important thing to the carpet python community is because you can't get carpet pythons anymore other than Papuan carpets that can be imported from West Papua and Indonesia. So those come in, but otherwise the bloodlines we have are the bloodlines we have. And so the big concern from a lot of the original individuals working with Morelia well before I was in there was that we need to make sure that there are pure lines of every species and subspecies and all these things just to make sure they're always here for future generations, because all these morphs and things, make it attractive to cross these different species, subspecies, lines, what have you. And once it's crossed, it can't be made pure again. You can't bring it back.
Right.
So it's just one of those things that has been highly valued by the Morelia community. And when I was first getting into carpet pythons, it took me a while to wake up to that and hear about it and understand it. But once I got it and understood the perspective as to why it's so valuable, it became very important to me. And that's not to say that morphs are bad or crosses or jag projects or whatever are bad. Like, breed what you want, like go for it, knock yourself out. I love seeing it all. It's beautiful. But to me, I only have like one or two mixed animals for one specific project. Otherwise, I've kind of riddled all that out. And there are a lot of people that follow suit like that. And there are a lot of people that love doing morph crosses. And then there are people that do both. And it's just all about preserving what we have in case we can't ever get more. There's a lot of folks that are hopeful that maybe one day Australia will realize that it can benefit their economy to allow breeders to export. It doesn't have to damage their wild populations. They can have good, sturdy regulations on their wild populations just to make sure that, it doesn't happen, because they're very concerned about, the populations of native species after cane toads and a lot of introduced, feral cats and things like that, that are decimating their native species and creating, a lot of problems. So it's all from a good place. Again, perspective, right? So
sure.
So it's one of those things. People like to know that if you're buying a coastal, that it's just a coastal and nothing else, because when you start crossing them, carpet pythons are such a variable group as it is, with a few exceptions that have very distinct phenotypes. You can look at a cross and it looks pure as the driven snow. You really can't see any differences, especially with high percentage crosses. I mean, you can speculate, but there's no telltale, scale markers or none of that stuff when you start dealing Papuans don't have a certain scale that you can see in all. It's just not like that. So the problem is when folks try to breed animals and they're okay with doing undocumented stuff, and then it gets passed on as pure. Information gets lost in translation. It's just kind of human nature to not realize the importance of what somebody's telling you at that moment. And so that's when the waters get muddied, and then you have people passing things off as pure and they're really not. And so that's when it becomes very important to be selective who you buy your offspring from or animals from, to know that what you're getting is what you're getting. So
I mean, I have dwarves and super dwarves, and
it's the same thing in that world. Yeah,
it drives me completely crazy. They've done it a lot better with carpets, and I don't really, I guess because retic bros are they're like ball python people, it's the same. It seems to be very much the same to me, in their attitudes of just make it cool. I don't really care. It's just weird. It's weird. Because I don't understand it, because I've never been that way. I'm particular. I like to know all the details of things.
Sure.
And so I've never understood the fact that people are not real particular about their lineage, and especially with dwarves and super dwarves, and especially with carpets. Because again, it's it is important. Like you literally can't get this information back once it's gone.
Yeah.
And
Well, and it's like he
just there's a
said,
lot,
you know,
and I think there's a lot of money involved too. I guess with the dwarf and super dwarf stuff. Again, I don't know.
Sure.
I'm not as familiar with the carpet market, so I don't know how huge
I mean,
the carpet market is. It doesn't seem like it's as huge lately.
You know, the Morelia folks, from my perspective, seem to value new stuff and pure stuff, and up to a degree, but like anytime there's new pure whatever, which hasn't happened a lot recently, $4,000 is like the starting point. Like it's just universal. It always seems like it's 4K and then it just slowly comes down. And I don't know, why that is. Obviously there's a lot of variables in the marketplace and how it all goes, but it's not a huge market compared to ball pythons, retics, things like that. And it's funny that we have this perception of like the quote unquote retic bros and just breeding whatever and this and that. And I don't know, it's funny because there's a lot of folks that get into carpets just to do jag morphs, and you could almost call them jag bros, you know what I mean? Like, I'll admit that right now. There are folks that come in, they're like, I want a granite jag, I want to do a zebra jag, and it's cool because like it has its place, right? It's great, but it's like anybody can do that.
And it's great because you know that they saw one and they were like, "That's amazing." You have a very clear understanding that they're just visually, they were like enamored with this one thing they saw, and they were so in love with it they like, "I want to do that myself," or "I need one."
Totally,
and that's a great thing.
There's tons of value in that. There's absolutely tons of value.
100%.
It's just a different. It's the other side of the coin, Morelli just has the comparison always seems to be made to ball pythons just to make it something relatable, not to pick on ball pythons, but a ball python is a ball python, right? Like there aren't subspecies, there aren't different species of ball pythons. It's a ball python, and then all the color variants.
There's no localities or anything.
Weird. Nothing confirmed thus far. Yeah.
Right.
Until that happens.
Now the day that it happens, people are going to be pissed.
Yeah. Well, I think they should be happy. So. It just opens up another avenue for ball pythons. It just adds
we can make the argument about the voltas and stuff like that.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's what I say. I only say people are going to be pissed from a standpoint of like, we've been fucking this up for so long. You know what I mean?
Like, maybe.
That's what frustrates me about the dwarf and super dwarf stuff is I'm like, guys, like, why are you not asking these fucking questions about where your animals are coming from? Like, I see people trying to find deals. Like, why are you trying to find deals? Like, go buy it from legitimate breeders. Don't try to find the Craigslist.
And even within like, morphs and ball pythons, there's good quality and then there's bad quality.
100%.
Yes. You can really like, there's like legit gold standard lines of pastel that people just don't even know about because a pastel is a pastel apparently, but it's not true. It's 100% not true.
Like LSR Fire, Lone State Reptiles. He's got a whole lot of fire that literally looks like fucking Desert Ghost in the single gene, just standard form. It's nuts.
And that's another one, Desert Ghost, dude. There are ugly Desert Ghosts out there, and people just won't admit it. There are ugly, dirty desert ghosts, and then there are clean and bright and just sexy big desert ghosts. And I know because we have the really nice ones at work.
Yeah, and just like in general, you can say that about because like even just their body types and stuff. Like I've noticed with ball pythons, like dude, the stuff that I got when I first got into the hobby that were ball pythons, and it's stuff that most of it I don't even have anymore. I've had animals that came through that I'm like, oh man, this is really cool, this is really pretty because it was whatever morph. But then now that I've gotten like deeper into this, and I've bought animals for a couple $1,000s that are from people like Justin Kabelka and places like that. There's just something better about those snakes, man. Like even down to just looking at individual scales and just like you can just tell that this animal, this line has been nothing but quality. Like every freaking baby that's been raised up and reproduced from has been looked at and verified to be like the best of the best, for years and years and years. And there's value to that people don't really, they're not aware of until it clicks, until you see it and you experience it. You're like, okay, that's what you're paying for. I get it.
Yep. Makes a big difference when you see it in person.
Yeah, Chris said 100%, but we can't admit we have all purchased the F grade at one point.
We all have a learning curve to go through.
Yeah,
that's
man.
part of it.
And that's just it.
You gotta crawl before you walk,
Right. And you get into something as a hobby, like the $25 or $50 animal obviously sounds a lot better than that like $1,000 animal or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just experience that you quickly realize what it is that you're spending your money on.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I just brought that up because it bothers me that there's other groups out there like the Morelias, and green tree pythons and things like that, where they do such a great job of tracking lineage, and you have these certificates and things like that. People really go out of their way, and the customer base seems to really value that. Mm-hmm. I just wish that would expand a little bit more, but I know that it's hard because that stuff has to kind of start early on, and the further along we get in time, the more difficult it does become to trace those things and to really verify them, because I wouldn't want to put a stamp on something and say that, yeah, I traced it. And it's like, well, I traced it based on a couple of phone calls and a couple of yeses, It's like,
it takes work, like I've definitely had an animal that like I was told was pure and it came from a good source. And what I did, instead of just assuming it, was I followed the trail. I followed who produced what and who had this and who did that. And I hit every single one of those people up. And I got information and photos and whatever I could, wherever I could. And I put it all out in just like a little PowerPoint slide in my computer and just connected all the dots. It's like, do. Okay, I don't have a photo of that animal, but I know where it came from and I know this. And, minus a few photos, all of a sudden I've got a family tree of like 4 or 5 generations. It goes back into the late 80s. I'm like, whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's great.
Yeah,
that is awesome. Yeah, that's way more than what most people have on any of their snags.
Yeah, it's cool. It's awesome. It's at least fun to know where your animals came from and why they look the way they do, or especially if you're looking at like the first generation of a morph. It looks so different the first time they hit the States from like 20 years later.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's cool.
Yeah, even from a line breeding standpoint.
The
breeder that brought them in really liked darker animals, or like he liked animals that had more contrast or whatever, and you could see it from those like 4th, 5th generation animals. You start to see the direction that they push because it has an effect. It's really neat.
Absolutely.
That's cool, man. Hell yeah.
So we had a couple things in the chat earlier, Riley, that I kind of want to go back to. Let's see. Chris Sexton had said that he wants to hear you talk about your melanistic Papuan project.
Okay.
So
We'll do that. And first off, Chris, I do believe I have the family tree in PDF form on my computer. If I didn't email you, we'll catch up and I'll email you that. I should have that already done, because that's the thing I love to do. I love putting that together for all the pairs. So the melanistic Papuan project, it didn't start out as a melanistic Papuan project. In 2015. I got some fresh red neonate imported farm hatch West Papuans that came into the country via Dan Malary. And I've got several of them from him. And they started out as, run-of-the-mill red neonate babies. They're really red. And I actually have photos of him holding it's Dan's hand holding a cluster of them and seeing how cherry red some of them are. And out of 1.2, I still have 1.1. What the striped female randomly like somehow injured her back or something. She broke her back and died. I don't know how at like a year old. It was a complete mysterious fluke thing. She was in a tub and I don't know how it happened. So the pair that I had, the male actually fires up, has some good orange to him, but they all have a lot of black to them. And the female I raised up, she ended up being pretty dark. So there's like a lot of color tones to your Papuans, and she's that like really dark base that fires up a little gray on the side. It almost looks lavender. It's just a very dark version of them. They have a lot of different phenotypes and they fire up and down at different times. So produced a clutch in 2019, and some of them came out a little bit darker than normal. A couple of them actually did come out with some good color, and I sent some off to friends, and it was very male heavy. So I just gave a bunch of males to some friends of mine. And then she's going right now. And I posted a photo of her the other day, right after her post-ovulatory shed. And she is just as black as night. And her pattern is like really dark copper. You can't barely see it. And then she just has the slightest bit of like belly color coming up. She is a black, dark popwin. And she just gets really dark when she's gravid. She did it the last time. And, but she seems to get darker and darker. Now, it's not a true melanistic project. I've never called it that. But it is noticeably dark. They are very dark. And I do have 2 other popwins that I bought from another breeder, and they are super, super sooty black. And that I'm hoping will translate into some extra dark babies. And if that's the case, then I will be merging those 2 lines of that wild caught F1 sort of blood in with this this other lineage that has some wild caught, some F1, some het granite stuff, and a lot of really more of a mixed background, but it's all pure popwin stuff, and see if we can keep making some dark animals. But it's nothing like Eric Burke's poison ivy stuff, which is potentially a truly melanistic popwin. So we'll see. Time will tell. It's one of those things that you see the potential in the first and second steps, but you really need to push it to like steps 4 or 5 to verify where you're at. So,
yeah, which that's crazy to think about when you consider that that's like a 20-year plus project, you know?
Like easily 20 to 25 years.
The math.
Yeah.
Because I know, like so I started doing a little research on them before, which for the record, Bradley, if you want to talk about, we'll just say like this is the reptile of the week with the popwin pythons, Riley's choice. And yeah, I started looking into it and I'm like, man, these things are freaking cool. Why didn't I already know about these? But I heard that, like you were saying, I think in a video, because I was talking to Bradley before you jumped in. I was like, I was trying to kind of research these things so I'm not a complete idiot about them, you know. I was like, but the only like decent videos that I could find was literally like you, Dan Maleri, and then it was like a bunch of people I had never heard of, which I'm sure there's probably some good information in there, but I like to stick just with, you know, with people that I'm familiar with. If I'm trying to do a 20-minute cramp session for information. But you had said something about like they might take like as much as like between 5 and 7 years to reach maturity.
Oh yeah,
which is crazy, and that's again, it just reminded me of like the dwarf and super dwarf retic, you know, projects where it's just, you know, even to get to second generation, it's like fuck, that's a long time.
It takes a long time, and some animals completely throw the rule book out the window. I've had adult carpets breed at 3.5. I've also got 6-year-old females that haven't bred for shit. So it's like, you know, I don't know. My collection is my collection is still relatively young. Like I have very few animals that are over 10. I think I have like maybe 3, 2, you know? So that's not old. So it teaches you a lot of patience, and it adds more perspective when you're also comparing to other species that tend to age faster. So it's just interesting.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's why I think, like I said, I love the dwarf and super dwarf stuff, and you know, so many, like, again, just, you know, I go back to it because it's the most common thing. But ball python people like trying to expand out because they're like, okay, these are great, but like now that I started with this, like there's all this other exciting stuff. Like I really want to branch out to that. Yeah. And then you start talking to them about the fact that it takes twice as long. You know?
The folks in ball pythons have to be like
calculated and easy.
You got to be on it with ball pythons. Like the weather changes annually. Like there's new projects coming on. Kudos to Justin, like unlocking all these different like old genes that do amazing things. And it's just, you got to be ready to roll at any given time if you're trying to stay relevant with certain projects. And it's just, that's just how that
love that aspect.
Is. Yeah, it's great. And I get a kick out of it at work. You know what I mean? My boss is like, dude, I think I'm going to get this. And then we can plug it into the Desert Ghost Clown and this. And I'm like, sick.
Yeah, go
I
buy
was
it.
gonna ask you.
Yeah.
Man. So,
Yeah.
like if you want, unless you guys want to transition to something else, I would love to talk to you just a little bit more about the shop and kind of what you guys have going on, because
Sure.
I can almost hear it in your voice every time we start to dive into it. You get excited, which is great to see, man. Like I love that. It really it makes me happy. It really does to see somebody that actually like has a job that they are excited to talk about that they do every day. I think that's great.
Yeah. So part of it is because like it's not just a retail shop; it's also a breeding facility and and so like you could really break the shop up into kind of 3 zones. There's the front half, which is the retail zone, which has an aquarium room, a reptile room, and then there's a whole bunch of like little, it's almost like a gallery style where there's like little islands of stands with tanks and stuff kind of spread out throughout the floor. Big murals on the wall. And it's a really cool high ceiling kind of open concept approach to a reptile shop. And then we had a friend.
Before we get too far into this, let's tell everybody what shop we're talking about.
Shoot. I totally failed. Sorry, Grant.
And no, you're good. We'll put this stuff down in the description as well.
I'll
so remember to go back and do it.
It's GX3 Reptiles and Exotic Pets. It's in Sacramento, California, and the owner is Grant Garten. GX3 is his initials are GGG, so that's where that comes from. But he's been breeding and selling reptiles of all sorts, from leechies to bloods to ball pythons to whatever, for like the last 15 years. And he finally opened a shop a few years ago, and we moved into a new shop that he bought the building last year. And so we've just done some major upgrades. We've got like custom concrete archways with like shelves for displays in the halfway point. So the front half is like where all the retail is, where you have all the tarantulas and the reptiles and the turtles and fish and whatever you can think of, we have it. And then in the back, there's basically 2 zones. So the back half has like a reptile room and a fish room, because it was already built in like these dual office things. So the building used to be a big pot grow op. And so the guys like had floor sinks in this one area, a hood fan, and like stainless walls for, evaporating their concentrate out and all this stuff. So that's the rodent area, which is perfect because I can ventilate any rodent stink right out the ceiling. But the back like main office area, we turned into the snake room. And so we've got heat and AC, we've got ceiling vents, we've got a couple doors, and then it opens up right into this fish room where we have 24 tanks full of like different freshwater shrimp and salamanders and fish. And then like on the adjacent wall, a bunch of geckos and frogs on a big breeding rack that we built. So there's all this natural humidity that just flows right into the reptile room. And then in the actual like open part of the half, we've got 5 big custom displays that were built by a local friend who did all the custom concrete work. And they all have 100-gallon pools with pumps and waterfalls, all custom rock work built in, and just amazing work. So in those are my boss's pets, but they're his breeders. So we have a big female black dragon who's due to drop another clutch in, I think, 3 or 4 weeks. And then
that's awesome.
Her hubby in the enclosure next door is a big, massive, like 7-foot het black dragon male. And then we have a big colony of 7 Philippine sailfin dragons running around with some monkey tail skinks and some Indian star tortoises. And it's a really cool mixed species group. They all do really well. And then we actually had a baby monkey tail right after we moved them all in. So that was neat. And then we have an Australian themed one with like red rocks and all this stuff. And that's where we have our pair of Bell's phase lace monitors. And then the exhibit next to it, we actually used as a bit of a hibernaculum this year because we turned off all the heat and let the natural fluctuation of temps do its thing, so we could brumate all of our tegus, beaded lizards, Russian tortoises, and Herman's tortoises. The tortoises just went outside. The Argentine tegus just went outside, but the reds and the blues are staying inside for a little bit more before they go back outside because we've got outdoor enclosures. And then that exhibit will be empty. And ultimately, it was built in such a way that if my boss is ever able to pull the trigger, he wants to get another pair of Spencer's monitors because he used to have some back in the day. Nice. So that's kind of his next pinnacle thing. So we've got, these nice big displays that are more off display from the retail end. And we kind of let people come in as we choose based on, how busy things are and whatnot and what time of year it is. Like if they're breeding stuff, nobody's coming back. But so it's a lot of fun. People love seeing those big lizards. They were on display at the old shop, so everybody wants to ask how they're doing. So it's tons of fun. There's a lot of community support for that. And then in the snake room, we've now got that expanded and dialed in. So we've got, a bunch of ball python projects, a couple blood pythons going. We have our colony of bearded dragons back there too, actually.
Nice.
What else is back there? Blackhead pythons, Woma pythons, ringed pythons, some Central American boas and morphs. A bunch of king snakes, Mexican black king snakes, Nelson's milk snakes, Honduran milk snakes, corn snakes, Leonis phase king snakes.
Man, it just doesn't stop.
and so far just one Boland's python. So
just one.
Just one. Yeah. Well, we had two, and the importer missexed both of them. We still ended up with a pair and lied to us about them being established on food, which they were not. And after a year of assist feeding the both of them, the female took off and has been doing great. The male died. Yeah. So I'm not even going to get to pointing fingers or naming names because I don't want to deal with that. So don't, if you guys want to know, you can figure it out. But so we've got a big variety of animals.
Now, is it just you and him that take care of these, or are there other employees?
So there are 3 other employees, 2 full-time employees and 1 part-time. The part-timer is the owner's brother-in-law who helps me out with all the stuff on the retail end on his couple days while the other 2 are on their weekend. And then the other 2 full-timers, one of them does all the animal work on the retail end around what I help out with. And then the other one does a lot of the inventory, some tank building, plant management, kind of customer management and other things. So I've got a small team that helps out so I don't have to do it all because it's a lot. So
yeah, for sure.
But and so I'm like overseeing, the care of the animals in the retail end as well as personally managing the animals in the back half, and then also managing the employees, the inventory, the retail side of things, customers, all of that. So I'm wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah, man, I would definitely say you're a valued person there.
Well, it's good because my boss has a 9-month-old son. He runs his family's tractor supply store, and in the building he bought for this, the front warehouse is actually his CrossFit gym. So before I started helping him manage the shop, he was essentially doing 3 full-time jobs with a kid. So so I've taken a little bit.
That's hard to do, and that's hard to do, and keep everything at the level that you would like for it to be, especially on the animal side. I'm sure that was probably stressful for him. So it sounds like
of course
the timing worked out well for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was perfect.
Looking to kind of transition from one thing to the next, and him desperately, obviously needing somebody to kind of have their hands on the controls. So that's great, man. Like I said, I'm real big on just kind of finding it funny how things work out.
For real,
in general,
the universe works in mysterious ways, man. Like it was clearly like there's a reason why it all timed out the way it did, and that was the biggest thing for me. I was like, dude, this is too obvious. I just got to do this. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Yep.
No, that's great, man. I'm excited for you guys, and it sounds like you guys are doing some great stuff. And I think that's one of my favorite things is when I hear somebody that has other successful businesses is also involved in the reptile hobby. You know, that excites
Yeah.
me just because I'm like, this, if anybody can make it successful and understand what it takes to make it work and
Yeah.
keep it there, and then again, just the impact that can have on getting new people in and just the public exposure and things like that. That's always a plus. So
Absolutely.
I love it, man. That's great.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a good place to work for sure.
So I think we should just kind of roll into our weekly segments that we do every week.
Yeah, man.
So the first one, like we talked to you about, Riley, we're gonna do band or musician of the week.
Ooh.
Like I said, man, it can be somebody from the past, somebody new, somebody local, whatever you're listening to, whatever you're into. Band or musician of the week, man.
Dude, you caught me at a good time because like I have so much free time in the morning to like jam out to whatever. Lately, I've been listening to a lot of 3 Inches of Blood.
Very nice.
If you look them up, dude, the guy has like this like this super high pitched voice, and it's all like Viking metal, and I'm like, it gets me all hyped to like mop the floor super fast. I'm like, woo! I love it, dude. I've been on their stuff because I grew up listening to that, and I remember when their albums came out in like 2003, 2004, and I was just like, I forgot about them for a while, and I heard one of their songs again. I was like, oh! So I went and bought all their albums again, and I was like, yes! So that's all I've been jamming lately is 3 Inches of Blood.
No, I dig it, man. No, I remember there was a day I was opening my bar, the bar that I used to manage, and my GM comes in. It's literally, you're talking, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. The bar doesn't open until 12. So I'm in there. I'm just in there to like clean from the night before, make sure everything's good, count money, do all the accounting. I got to do inventory, etc. So it's like 7 in the morning, and he comes in, and I've got a Monomark just blasting.
Yes.
Like we have, again, it's a bar, and keep in mind on the weekends, it's packed.
Yeah, speakers everywhere.
I've got our full system just blaring to the point that I can't hear people knock on the doors.
Nice.
And that was like that was my standard operating procedure on weekends, like Saturday, Sunday mornings. I opened every Saturday, Sunday morning, and I would just start the day off that way. And he comes in and he's like, dude, how the fuck? He's like, I love you, but I don't know how the fuck you wake up like this.
It's the best.
He's like, man, he's like, I just fucking crawled out of bed. He's like, I am not ready for this level of energy yet. I was like,
no way to start the day.
He closed the night before, so he had only been asleep for like 2 hours. He's like, I'm not ready
Fair
for
enough.
this shit yet. He's like, but he's like, I don't know how you do it, dude. I was like, I was like, I got to get this out of my system before I got to listen to like, the top 25 for the rest of the day.
Oh, yeah, serious.
So yeah, no, I'm glad I'm not the only one that's a crazy person that starts out like that.
Yeah, my employees,
floors, same thing. Just
dude, the coworkers I have, they come in the morning and it's the same deal. I got it up on the Bluetooth full blast, and like they're just like, God damn it! They come in with their own headphones just to tune me out.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I would literally have people show up to make deliveries because like normally Saturday, Sundays we didn't take deliveries, but once in a while we'd have a rep show up and they'd be banging on the fucking door to try to get my attention, and I would not hear a lick of it, not for a second. Like they'd have to hope. They would have, like, I'd come to the door some days and I'm like, how long you been waiting? They're like, dude, I've been out here for like 20 minutes just banging on the fucking door. I'm like, my bad, man. I'm like, unless somebody tells me somebody's making a delivery, like I'm in my own world.
Yeah, so good. Oh, that's awesome.
So, Zach, was that your way of saying that your band this week was a Monomark?
Let's go with it, man. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
It's been a minute since I've listened to them, honestly. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately.
Yeah.
So I haven't been listening to near as much music. But it's been good because, like, again, I work mostly solo, like, all day, every day. So I can literally, like, I can play music all day long. And I'm not going to lie, this is the first time in years and years where I'm just like, I feel like I've run out of shit to listen to. Because, I listen to a lot of the same stuff, which is fine. I love it. I still, like, I will listen to the same album on repeat every day, 7 days a week until I'm sick of it, and then I'll switch to something else. so I think that's where I'm at right now with just everything in general. I'm just like, I kind of want to take in information while I'm working.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to kind of to transition into that, and it's been good. But yeah, Amon Amarth is a great fucking band, man. So yeah, well, I'll go with that as my music of the week. They're so good. They're so
I saw
good.
them in San Bernardino, and they had a full Viking ship on stage,
Viking
and dudes
ship,
came out beating the shit out of each other with swords while he's just belting it out. Dude, it was so epic.
See, the thing for me is any band anymore that and especially now, obviously the shows are dead until the world goes back to some sense of normalcy or whatever. But I appreciate anybody that puts on an actual show. Like I almost. You have to toe the line because the music still needs to be good, but I'll give a lot more leeway to a band to be less good audio wise if their show experience is still really, really exciting and
I don't know, man. I'm the opposite.
It's hard to say. Well, it just depends. I mean, it's got to be a literal show. Like the sound's got to be good. It's got to be a band I still like. But
it's got to sound good,
like Gwar is a fucking experience. To go to.
Gwar is
literally somebody that doesn't like their style of music or has never even heard them or whatever. Like if you go to a Gwar show, it's because again, it's an experience. Everything from start to finish is an experience, and I love that. Like Rob Zombie, it does the same thing.
Oh, hell yeah.
It's all about putting on a real show. Slayer does it in their own way, with all their
pyrotechnics and the changing backgrounds. Yeah. Huge.
Every second from the time they start until the time they're done is planned and plotted and thought about, and I appreciate that level of detail.
Hell yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, that's good shit, man. What about you, Bradley? What you got this week, brother?
All right, so I have to go into a little bit of stories because y'all guys just brought up a whole fucking world of shit for me.
No, that's my favorite part about this.
When I saw Gwar, I saw him with Lamb of God.
Oh,
and my buddies,
that's insane.
Had no fucking idea who Gwar was. Like my friends didn't know who Gwar was, and I told them they were coming there just for Lamb of God. That's it. And I was like, dude, when you see Gwar, you're just gonna be like, what the fuck did I just see? So by the end of Bring Back the Bomb, I know you guys know the song Bring Back the Bomb. Yep. By the end of Bring Back I was missing one shoe, I was missing my other sock, I was missing my shirt, and I lost my pack of cigarettes. So when Lamb of God comes on stage and they're playing Grace, like the fucking lights are all out and it's just Mark Morton, playing the intro. And Randy Blythe is like squatted down smoking a cigarette. And I'm just screaming at him like, let me have a hit off that fucking cigarette, Randy, come on. And he just kind of looks at me like I'm stupid. And I'm like, Randy, come on, man, let me hit the cigarette. And Randy Blythe just hands me a cigarette, and it was just the greatest thing ever because I thought I was dying, I just wanted a cigarette so bad, and all my shit's pink and green and red slime and fucking shit all over me. All right, so that's gonna roll into my band of the week, which is Through the Eyes of the Dead, and I don't know if you guys know who Through the Eyes of the Dead.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so at the exact same place where I saw Gwar and Lamb of God, I saw all types of bands there. Well, Through the Eyes of the Dead came, and there was maybe 25 people that showed up to the show. That's it. Nobody showed. And this is in Little Rock, Arkansas, man. There wasn't really a huge metal scene at the time. Mm-hmm. Through the Eyes of the Dead shows, and they get on the stage and they're just kind of looking fuck, there's 20 people here.
Yeah.
They tell the fucking venue owners to lock the doors, and they bring out their ice chest, and they were like, we're just going to fucking party. Y'all are going to drink with us. We're just going to have a good time and hang out. So we wound up hanging out till fucking 2:00 in the morning. They played a 4-hour show, played all kinds of covers, and we hung out with Through the Eyes of the Dead, and they were just the coolest motherfuckers ever.
Badass.
So, that's my band of the week, Through the Eyes of the Dead. And if you guys go and you want to hear the best intro to something ever, just check out the song As Good as Dead, and just imagine a concert starting with that song, and it just attacks you, and fuck yeah, man.
So good. So good. Oh,
that's my favorite thing about metal music in general, dude. Is just that
Never gets old, man. It's always exciting. There's always more.
It's
even if you've heard of the band, you're like,
always,
oh, I forgot about them. Oh!
Yes, dude. I've had those moments at work where I'm like, it just like a song will pop into my head or a band will pop into my head, and I'm like, oh, it's like I physically get excited, like pulling my phone out of my pocket, like I cannot get to Spotify fast enough.
I don't know if you guys just saw that, but I like lifted my shoulders from chill bumps right then. Like, talking about metal.
I've got chill bumps on every time we have this conversation. I feel like this happens at some point.
Oh, it's the best.
It's just good, dude. Hell yeah.
All right, Riley. So leaving music, movie or TV show of the week. It can be old, new, same shit.
Sopranos TV show.
Oh,
nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Been rocking some old Sopranos. That came out and was live and new when I was a kid, little kid, and my mom watched it, and she would watch it while I was around, but I was too like bouncing off the walls. I didn't give a damn what the hell she was watching.
Right. You're too busy lighting on stuff on fire.
Yeah. Too busy paintballing my brother or something like that. Airsoft shooting him, whatever, just picking on my brother. And but yeah, Sopranos has been what we have been watching quite religiously lately here. My girlfriend and I get into shows and we're like, okay, we're to start from the beginning. We're just and so yeah.
And you're pissed when you run out of that show to watch.
Dude, that's why we're going back through all these oldies, because like my hands down favorite TV show that's ever been made is the Peaky Blinders.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Nice.
We will watch that.
It's so good, man.
I love that show.
It's so good. It has such an emotional effect on you when you really get into it. It's just so well done.
Yeah, it makes me want to get into that terrible stuff.
I've loved that guy ever since 28 Days Later came out, though.
Oh, like, such a good movie.
I've just always thought he would, like, I loved him in everything I've ever seen him in. Like,
yeah, he's great.
I really like him. And then fucking Sam Neill, Jurassic Park changed my life. So
yes. Oh man.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you got, Zach?
Actor. I feel like such a fucking asshole every time we do these. I always have some lame shit to bring up, but it's always just like, it's
bro,
what
you
I'm
said
watching
Hook.
At the
Hook's
moment
one of the greatest movies ever.
Oh, that's a good
Hook,
one.
I know. Well, I know. Well, maybe that's more the issue is I started off with such of this, like, to me is like a pinnacle because it's from my childhood and it will always be like just on a pedestal for me.
Of course.
And for the record, I rewatched that. I think I text you the next that
you
night,
did.
like 4 a.m, like, hey man, did you realize that so and so was in this? Like Phil Collins.
Gwyneth Paltrow is who you text me.
Gwyneth
Paltrow
like, is in fucking Hook. Because I forgot. Like I genuinely forgot how many amazing people are in that movie.
Yeah.
Go rewatch it. Dustin Hoffman, like, it's so good. It's so good. It's amazing.
Classic.
And the fact that it's not talked about more is amazing to me. Like, I feel like there should be way more memes. I'm gonna start making Hook memes. You guys have seen Hook memes making.
I support that.
No, but I'm the same way, man. Like, I find that the older that I get, like the more that I find myself just going back and rewatching the same shit over again. Like ad nauseum, like to the point that's like just like, but it's mostly because like I guess like I have really bad anxiety, and so I guess they say that like that's like a thing where like people that have it, like we tend to rewatch the same stuff because at least we know what's going to happen. And so there's no like watching new stuff, like with Peaky Blinders. I only watched that within the last couple of years. I literally reached a point. What season did I stop on? It was when they were starting a new business with a guy. It was like a new bootlegging business. It doesn't matter, but it was like one of the like maybe season 4 or something like that. And I couldn't deal with it because I saw from episode 1, I was like, I see already that what they're hinting at being a really bad thing coming, and I couldn't deal with it. Like I was just like, all right, I can't. I'm gonna not watch it anymore because I can't deal with the stress of knowing that 3 or 4 episodes from now something terrible is gonna happen. I can't.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I rewatched a lot of the same old stuff. Warehouse 13 is one of like I love sci-fi. I love like Warehouse 13, Eureka. All that stuff, or like Eureka is one of my favorite shows. I'm currently rewatching Warehouse 13 though. It's just like I said, it's super cheesy, and like super like kind of like B grade acting and stuff. But like I don't know, man. I get a kick out of. I don't know why. I just do. I think I like Eureka a lot more. I think I watched like all of Eureka before I ever started watching Warehouse 13. And I only started watching it because they have a lot of cameos. Because it's a Sci-Fi Network, and they understood that like they could build their audience that way. But
Sure.
yeah, like I said, I know it's not nearly as like good or like appreciated, and the acting is terrible and stuff like that. But it's one of my go-tos. It's nice because you can turn on the background and you don't care about the details of what's happening.
Right.
It's like, yeah, it's a show I've seen 1,000 times, and the plot is terrible.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. That's where I'm at.
Nice.
Bradley, what you got?
All right. So mine is, again, a movie that I've seen a billion times. I do this every week. It's always a movie that I've seen a million times. And I just recently went back and watched it. Like over the past week, I went back and watched it. And every time I watch it, I get something else out of it. And it's Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman.
Yes.
And
dude,
like
so good.
Every time I watch that movie, there's some little something, whether it just be like the way that they cut a scene or clip to something, like I pick up something else. And that movie is amazing. It's great. But dude, it just, every time, like I know what's going to happen. I know, spoiler alert, I know that fucking Kevin, whatever his name is the killer.
You
like
know
I
who
know
the bad guy is.
Yeah, I know. But it's enticing every time.
Yeah.
Like, well thought out.
No,
well,
that's a
you're
good
absolutely
movie.
right, man. That is so good.
Yeah.
I also like The Bone Collector. To me,
yeah, that's good too.
Yes, I
wouldn't
love
put
that
The Bone Collector
movie.
on the same level as Seven, but they're together. Like, and they came out, I think, in that same era where just like I love those thrillers like that, man.
Yeah.
Like,
dude.
Oh yeah, dude! Like Kiss the
There's
Girls,
some mystery. There's like some
all those
really
movies.
fucked up like murders. It's just I get a kick out of that stuff, man.
Oh yeah,
so much. Anytime there's like a really well done serial killer movie, where there's like actual mystery, where you really can't tell what the fuck is going on, and they really hide things. Like dude, so good.
Yeah.
And like you said, those are those movies you can watch and watch and watch, and like you said. It's almost like listen to a song or something. There's always something that you'll pick up, whether it's a new lyric that you didn't catch before that suddenly means something because of something you lived through in your life or whatever, with music. Whereas, in these movies, it's like there'll be a scene where you're like, I didn't catch that line before, or you didn't catch the foreshadowing before the first time because you didn't know that it was coming. But now that you do, you're like, oh, fuck, that's amazing. And your mind is blown all over again.
I love that.
Like, I should have known, and I love that I see this detail now, and you have such a respect now for the way the movie was written and produced. Yeah.
Super
but yeah,
good.
Seven is one of those movies for sure. There's just
I need to go watch that again.
Things. I'm not kidding. I'm gonna probably watch it when we get done.
Yeah,
that's
going.
Either that or Bone Collector. One of the two is going on. Maybe both.
So good.
Okay, so there's something that I've never done on this show before that I want to do with Riley, and I'll tell you why I want to do it with Riley and like kind of the backstory on it. So my daughter Lainey has been on Wrapped Around Reptiles all the time. She's never once been on Connected by Creatures. This isn't a show that like we really aim towards kids at all. But I want to bring her on this, and it's because of the Zoom meeting that we had with Brian Cusco with Riley. And we had talked a little bit about other animals outside of reptiles that Riley's worked with. And Riley had mentioned okapis, which is my daughter's 100% favorite animal in the world.
Nice.
And she's never had a chance to really talk to somebody about them or anybody that's really interacted with them. So I'm going to bring Lainey in right now and let her talk to Riley a little bit.
Let's do it.
Okapis.
Dude, okapi are like I'm okay working with like whatever, like if you give me the rundown on what they need and like how to take care of them.
What's up, Lainey?
I'm so you love okapi, it sounds like.
Yeah, I do, because the first time I've ever even heard of one, it was in top 10 animals you probably never heard of.
Yeah. That's very fitting for them.
I did my own research, and I love the fact that the only thing that's closely related to a giraffe is something that doesn't even look like a giraffe.
Right. Yeah. No, most people think they're closer related to a zebra or a horse
because of their zebra leggings.
Mm-hmm. You got it. It's a very convincing and very unique marking, right? So it makes sense why people think that. But when you really boil it down, you look at their skull structure. They have that big plane, and they hit their eyebrows, and then behind that you have your ossicones, very similar to giraffes, right? So that's the first dead giveaway. The thing with okapi is they're not born with them, and only the boys have them. The females will just kind of have little like skull protrusions there. The boys, theirs grow in, and eventually the hair on the top wears off, and it's kind of like this calcified bone. And they use that for if they ever do have to fight with another male, which is rare, being solitary. But yeah, the other thing you look for is the split toe hooves. So horses and zebras have a single toe. They have a split toe. And my girlfriend's probably in the other room listening to me going, Artiodactyla, Pterodactyla. And I don't know which one it is. It's one of those terms. You probably know it better than I do. But they're and then that big purple tongue, it's like a foot and a half long.
It's the signature look of anything.
Yeah, so they literally like can slap the back of their necks and pick their ears and their nose with it, just like a giraffe. And it's the goofiest thing, and people love seeing it, right? But they're colloquially referred to as the forest giraffe, and they essentially occupy a different niche of environment. And so you have your giraffe that occupy these very barren areas where it benefits them to be tall, to see long distances, be aware of predators, and also reach the very hard to get food and plants, because in an arid, desolate environment, those trees and bushes really evolve to have specialized functions that are best designed for arid, low rain environments. And it's up there, and so the animals have to really work to get to that foliage, whereas okapi live in sort of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in this very, very isolated Ituri forest. And they used to have a much larger territory, but it's been deforested, and a lot of other silver mines and coal mines have fragmented their habitat. And instead of relying on the safety and numbers approach that giraffes do, they rely on the stealth and solitary lifestyle in the forest. So they're very delicate at stepping. They disappear right into dense foliage, and they are just as alert. Their ears are huge. They can hear everything. They have very fast twitch muscles, so they're very good at like just disappearing and taking off when they have to. And the only time you ever see them together is if you have a mating pair that's come together for breeding, or you have a mom who is with calf, and the calf will follow mom. And that's where those hind leg stripes come into play, because a calf can see very nicely those stripes as they're, kind of navigating dense foliage in the forest. And then I'm sure a lot of this as well. They all have unique patterns and stripes. It's kind of like a fingerprint for us. And then they leave very intense scent marks in the ground from their hooves. So that's how other animals, other mates can find them, how babies can track mom. And so as a result, they're a little skittish. They're a little shy. They do have a threat of human predation and poaching for bushmeat, their pelts, things like that. So other than, natural habitat degradation and human influenced habitat fragmentation, there's a lot of poor people out there that need to feed themselves. And if they come across one, regardless of how endangered that animal is, their kids got to eat. And then the other thing that they have to worry about are African leopards. And they have the coolest defense against a big cat. So how big cats, they'll stalk a prey and they launch and they try and go for the throat and bring down the animal for the kill, right? So they will probably see the hindquarters first because they stand out a little bit more. Okapi are very brown and black, velvety. It blends right into the shadows and the dark cover. But these African leopards will launch onto these okapi, and they have some of the densest fur and the thickest hides. And a cat will latch on, sink its claws in, thinking they're going to try and take them down. And that okapi hits 0 to whatever insanely fast. Because of that dense, tough hide, they can take a little bit of, some abuse, for lack of a better word, and they will literally run into trees while a leopard is hanging on them and bash that leopard into trees while going full speed and knock that cat off of them. And I've seen the boys that I used to work with at Sacramento, they get some zoomies and they run around, and occasionally we'd notice a good scratch on one of them or something, and it's like taking chunks out of them. They're not bleeding, they're not phased, they don't care, and it's just a perfect medley of all of these behaviors and physical attributes for an animal that is so specifically designed for this dense forest. And on top of that, they're nowhere near as skittish as giraffe. So both of those boys at the zoo here, I've had the pleasure of being very, very friendly with, and got to pet them and rub their ears and go in with them and watch one of them kind of grow up from a little boy to an adult and get comfortable with tactile work. And they are 100% as soft as they look. Like oily, like you rub them and your hands get like the brown oil from them long enough.
I don't think my mom would be able to touch them because Mom hates touching anything super soft.
It's like they have super dense fur, so it's just like, it's so soft, and they're amazing, and they let you pet them. They're like a 500-600 pound horse, basically, and I have so many great memories of working with them, even if it was just for a year and a half here and there, just sparingly. But they're such amazing animals. Super, super cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Appreciate it, Riley.
You're welcome. If you guys ever come out to Sacramento, my girlfriend still happens to be one of the keepers there. She takes care of the giraffes and a few other things. So if you guys ever happen to be out, I can't promise anything, but we can definitely, try and go see them sometimes.
Appreciate it, man. That make her life the same way that we are about reptiles and everything.
Yeah, man, they're cool. She's got a good head on her shoulders, man. She's fallen in love with the really unique animals who need a lot of that attention and support and highlight to their plight of conservation, because as wonderful and amazing as they are, the folks that live in the DRC where they're from, they have a really tough life, and there's a conservation station that's been there for a long time, and they've brought okapi in for breeding programs and managed breeding out there. And I don't know all the details off the top of my head anymore, but there were some, I don't know if they were just rebels or guerrillas or something like that, but they went in and murdered a bunch of people and the animals that were in that area, and slaughtered and killed a bunch of innocent people.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Just based on the fact that what they were trying to do, just their work there.
Yeah. I don't know if it was because of the conflict of interest of them mining the area or the bushmeat for those animals, or they just didn't like, outsiders coming in. I don't know, but several people lost their lives at that conservation station, including, I think, 13 okapi. And this is a species we're talking about that we've only known to Western science for like 112 years, which is like nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah, it's a blink of
a lot of the reptiles we keep were first described in the late 1700s. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
they're cool.
That's crazy.
They're amazing.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about them prior to this. Literally, like I knew they existed because I had to look them up. I was like, I've heard of those before. I've probably seen them, but I don't know exactly what we're talking about. I googled them. I was like, oh yeah, I know these, but I didn't know anything about them. Like at all. I mean, and so I honestly, I'm sure I'll say I've written them off forever because I'm sure that I've seen them at zoos before and been like, oh, that's
maybe not
cool,
though. They're rare.
And maybe not. I know I've at least seen pictures, because again, I recognize the striping and stuff.
Yeah.
On the legs, so I know that I've seen them, but I didn't know anything about them.
Yeah,
That's
they're rare.
amazing.
It's funny because Laney is really into a lot of, kind of awkward animals like that, stuff that most people don't pay any attention to.
Mhm.
And I know from, like I said, Cusco's Live, when you had said that you worked with Okapis, like she's been talking about that ever since, about how you're the coolest person ever because you got to work with Okapis and be around them.
Oh, that's awesome.
But man, like if you ask her about, any, like she loves like what are the there's only two, like there's the duckbill platypus that lays and the echidnas. Like she talks about the the egg laying mammals. And like the other day we were having a conversation about salmonella in egg laying mammals, like if it would, how the salmonella would affect egg laying mammals. And
that's a
man,
good question.
I honestly didn't have an answer for her,
Yeah,
so
me
like
neither.
we kind of looked
amazing.
it up. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, okapi are really rare, even in zoos. I think there are 3 zoos in California that have them: Sacramento, LA, and San Diego. And then other than like Denver, you have to go east of the Mississippi to see them.
Houston has them.
Oh, that's right. Houston has a breeding program.
Yeah.
In Disney's Animal Kingdom, they have a breeding program as well. So yeah, they're
that's
coming
the only
up.
place I can think I might have seen them. Then maybe it didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's the only place that Laney's ever gotten to see them in person.
Yeah,
at Houston, because we lived down there by the zoo, and we'd go up there. And the same way that I was as a kid, we had to spend 6 hours in the reptile house, and my mom's like, "Damn it, Bradley, there's other shit we can look at. And the snakes don't even do nothing." Like Laney just sits and watch the Okapis.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Man.
Mindy says St. Louis has Okapis.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they're fun. They're really amazing animals.
I'll have to look. I'll have to look into that.
Do it,
Riley,
dude.
man. I had made you a promise before we started, because I know that you got
we
dinner
can go
and all that stuff.
We got time.
I'm 100% down to keep going because I could listen to you talk forever. So it's really up to you, man. Like we can keep charging forward because I got other stuff. I'd really like to talk more about the Apodoras and how that came. All right, awesome.
Let's do it. We'll jump right in.
Like we had said earlier, the reptile of the week this week was chosen by Riley. It's the Apodoras, the Apodora papuana. And basically what happened, and the reason Riley is on here is so I'm looking at, all you guys know that I'm looking to get an Apodora. Like I've loved them always, but I really fell in love with them when I got to interact with Nerd. And I talked to Garrett about maybe he knew somebody that had some, and he told me to reach out with Riley. And like I've known Riley and I met at Carpet Fest at Cusco's house. Like we've interacted, and so by reaching out to Riley, we got to talking, and I was like, you know what? There's so much that I want to talk to you about. Hey man, you mind coming on Zach and I's show that we do? And he was willing to do it, and that's why he's here. And here recently, the last few weeks, we've been letting our guests choose the reptile of the week, and Riley chose the Apodoras. And it's funny because the day that I reached out to Riley, I didn't even look at his Instagram earlier in that day, and he had posted a picture of a Papuan that day before I even looked at it. So like you guys were talking about earlier, man, the world works in crazy ways, and it just works in circles. And so yeah, man, drop us that Apodora knowledge, Riley. Let us know.
So the first time I got to experience Apodora, when I lived in Southern California in Santa Barbara, I would go down to all the shows, and Todd Dyer is a friend of mine, and I got to see his adult pair, and they're like 13 feet, and they were both in shed and breeding, and he's been trying to crack that code for a long time. And he pulls the female out and drapes her over my shoulders while she's in shed. And she turns around and gives me this side eye, and the eye moves in the socket. And I was just like, oh, this is amazing. This is the coolest snake ever. And so ever since then, I've been hooked. Like, I've got the bug. And so, we're talking about a potentially 14-foot python from PNG that eats other snakes, birds, mammals, what have you. And they will eat a Boland's python if they come across one. Sorry. It's just
Yeah.
they're a little bit up there.
Yeah,
they are. And my guy, I fed him some stillborn or deceased babies, and he's like, "Go, this is cool. I'll take this."
Yeah,
and
just whatever you throw in there.
Yeah, he's a great eater. He's very intelligent. He's not defensive. He has his moments where he's a little bit spooked, but he doesn't bite. He doesn't do anything, and that's not the same for every animal. I'm sure there's different, personalities, but we're talking pound for pound, one of the strongest pythons on the planet.
Insanely strong. If you've never,
unbelievable.
I was looking at the video that you posted, man. Even looking at their skull structure, just the way that they're built, I'm like, man, I can tell that's a powerful fucking snake. Like, almost kind of that pit bull shaped head, like Carpus, but
very short,
more
bulldoggy.
Purpose built, like purpose built.
Yeah, they're amazing. They have like a black skin underneath their scales, so their gray head scales when they're really fired up, because a lot of snakes from PNG fire up night and day. You see that black coming through on the edging, and it just gives this really intense look. They have a black, dark gray charcoal mouth, and then they have that olive dark green with the two-tone from top to bottom on the flanks, and they're just absolutely phenomenal snakes. Very intelligent, very inquisitive, very powerful. My guy's like a year or so, a year and a couple months. When I got him, he was a fresh import from DM Exotics, Dan Malaria again. I got him last January, and he still had his umbilical slit. Like he probably had one shed. And even though he was that young, he had already had things try and eat and kill him, because he had a few bite marks from a few different types of animal, a couple bird marks and some mammalian mark on him. And he's hands down the most unique animal I've ever seen. And so, there's only been a handful of people that have ever bred them in the U.S. I think a few people in Europe, Sweden, a couple other countries have had success over the last few decades. The last known breeding in the U.S. that I'm aware of was a gentleman in 2016, I think, in either Rhode Island or Maine, and he had a good clutch. And so my male is an import, which pretty much all of them are. And so my friend Eric Burke bought a pair of those captive born and bred ones, and unfortunately his female just didn't take off, didn't really get going after he got her, and so his male passed, and so he has a female that was from that captive born and bred clutch from 2016. So him and I being friends like we are, we send each other snakes, just kind of here, you take these, I'll send you these, whatever. He decided a while back that he's going to send me his female. And it's just going to be kind of one of those indefinite projects that I could see myself, if I had to, get rid of everything just to make them, work, which is never going to happen. Yeah. Of course, I will make it work for everything else in here, but they're hands down like the biggest, most unique, most unheard of, like amazing animals, just bar none. I think I should grab him.
Yeah, definitely. Joe Rosa. Joe Rosa wants you to pull him out, and I definitely want you to pull him out as well.
Yeah, I like I said, just to me the biggest, because I watched your video showing him. And you were talking about how, they're kind of like scrubs, but they're not, obviously very much not like scrubs. I love the way they're built, man. I love that head shape for whatever reason. That head shape to me, see how just so short and stumpy and broad, and they just look like they're built for power. Yeah.
And this guy's, he's lean because I didn't feed him at all this winter. I kind of gave him a seasonal variation.
That's beautiful, man.
But he's every bit of 4 feet already, and he's just a year old, little over a year. And when I open his enclosure, he'll come out and he'll present himself, but he's very alert and curious. And I interact with him the same way a monitor does. And I will flat hand under his head and do a little bit of tactile work with him.
Yeah.
and he's good. He's never once struck. He's never had an adverse reaction. And he's been the epitome of perfection and health and everything I could ask for. And I just really, really cannot wait for two of them to be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. That's
like I told
animal.
you, when and if this breeding project happens, whether it's 5 years down the line, like we talked about, I'm number one on the list, and cost doesn't matter, bro. Especially a captive born and bred animal, and especially an animal coming from you. Even if I have picked up an import at that point, like I don't care what it costs, Riley. I definitely want one from you, man. And to your credit, like I've had maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours of one-on-one time with one of those to where I could just do what I wanted to with it and mess with it. And it was up at Nerd, and I instantly fell in love. Like the second I got home, like that's all I've talked about. Katie's sick of hearing about Papuans because like that's all I've been, I don't care what else is on our list. He was
even talking to me about them.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I mean, he literally told me it's been a couple months ago. He's like, I'm getting one of these. Like, I know my next snake, and that was exactly what he said. So I'm like, damn. All right.
Yeah,
they're amazing.
And dude, like you said, so strong, like pound for pound. I was telling you, like I was texting Riley the other day and telling him, like I've never felt an animal, a snake wise, that at the size that one was just that strong, man. Like it's a grip that I've never felt from an animal before.
Oh
like,
yeah,
it's intense.
It's
powerful. It's a serious fucking animal. Like it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, when they're fully grown, it's an animal not to take lightly. Just like any other big snake. Good to have your protocols, turn off feeding response, make sure somebody knows you're working with those animals at that time or is present. Yeah. If you really should have a second person present, but at the very least, somebody should know that hey, I'm taking out the Apodora. Hey, I'm working with the Apodora. If you have big full on adults, because that's an animal that can put you in a bad spot real fast.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, I think people throw it out there occasionally, but it's not talked about enough. Like big snakes can kill you on accident in a heartbeat. Like literally if you are not smart in terms of like the way that you're putting holding a snake, big snakes like that, they will literally just by trying to hold on, they can snap your neck or, it can happen. So yeah.
I talked to a guy the other day in the shop who was telling me he's got a big reticket at his facility that he drove all the way out to Houston to pick up because it killed a guy.
What?
Holy cow.
Yeah, it killed a guy. So he went and picked it up so it wouldn't be euthanized. The guy made a mistake. It was not a mean animal. It was just a big, strong animal.
No, and that's just it.
Oh, it's just funny because I've been in the Houston area and I didn't hear about it, so I figured.
I don't know how long ago it was. It might have been some time ago. I don't think it was very recent, but anyway, that's just something we got to remember. These animals are powerful, and if something happens, it's usually our fault. So.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there was a video going around for a little while from, who knows what country, one of these smaller countries where they're native. And it was a performer working with a retic. It was a smaller retic. It was probably 7 foot, maybe 8 foot at the most. But I mean, body wise, a big around. I mean, it wasn't big around. It was a smaller snake. And he just, he had it around his neck and he's dancing and he's doing the performance. And slept him, yeah, and that's people don't talk about that stuff enough. Again, I've got a 7 foot. She's a dwarf. She's about 7 foot. I don't, dude. If I'm taking her out to handle, somebody knows I'm taking her out to handle. Yeah. Like, hey, if you don't hear something in the snake room in the next 15 minutes, you might want to check on me because you just never know, man. You just don't. Again, I'm very, again, 7 foot. She's easy to handle. I don't want anybody that's hearing this after the fact to think that there's any worries or concerns.
Yeah, totally.
Bradley's pup.
No,
but
you know
awesome. What I mean? It's just one of the just the right movement and literally just the right muscle flex. From a 10 to 12 foot snake. Shit,
dude, this dude's turning my thumb purple right now, just holding on.
Yeah. just holding on, and that's
Yeah.
so again, yeah. Imagine if that's a 10-foot snake and that's your neck.
Yeah.
So I don't have ninja peeing skills like Cusco, so I had to go to the bathroom. And when I
Good for
came
you.
back, it looked like the dog had just taken over my spot. Like,
I was
just for a
wondering
split
about that
second,
initially
it was
'cause he
perfect.
was. Yeah.
It was perfect.
Yeah, prior
it was
to
well
you, like,
done.
lifting him up, he was
Yeah.
he was literally just sitting in your spot, like, all right,
It was
I'll
good.
just take over.
Just
that's
filling
what
in
this
for you.
shit's all about.
Dude, it's funny you bring that up. So today I'm driving. I drive for work. I literally drove almost 150 miles today. Between all the stores that I had to hit. But I'm getting off of the highway, so I'm on an off ramp at a light, and I look over, and there's a bottle of Four Roses whiskey, which is like a decent whiskey, and it's just sitting, and I'm like, it's about half full. And I literally, my immediate thought was Brian Cusco. So I took a picture of it. I was like, Cusco, I'm pretty sure that's not whiskey in that bottle anymore. I was like, but also I'm confused about the fact that our homeless here in Charlotte are drinking Four Roses. We got some classy homeless people here in Charlotte
doing it up.
Because it was at the off ramp where you can see, like, there's like orange slices and shit thrown out everywhere. And there's just this bottle of Four Roses. That, like I said, it very well might have been whiskey. Maybe that guy left it for the next guy. Like, hey, somebody gave me this on the way home from the ABC store. I'll leave it for the next guy.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it could have been urine. It's hard to say.
That's too funny.
But yeah, I had to take a picture of it. I texted to Cusco. Like, literally, it was like 11 o'clock this morning. And I was like, man,
nice.
I gotta share this.
Nice.
I thought it was pretty damn funny.
Hell yeah.
With his urination skills. I was like, Cusco, I'm gonna need you to taste test this. You can tell me exactly what I was like, you're definitely gonna know, like, the flavor profile of both Four Roses and urine, and you're the only human being I know that can say that with like definitively. So I need your expertise.
So I'm gonna text you my address, man. You can go ahead and send that snake over here.
Yeah, there you
that'll
go.
be just fine.
Mine.
Yeah, the Poplin.
He's mine.
Like I said, prior to you asked for those to be the snake of the episode. Like, dude, that's the first time I heard of them, and like I said, I immediately was like, all right, I gotta look these up. The first thing I saw was your video, which was, like I said, just it made me laugh. I was like, of course. But yeah, like I said,
they're amazing.
They're
dude.
very, very, very interesting, man. And
Yeah.
I love their color. I'm excited to see them hopefully get kind of established, in captivity.
Yeah,
I think
there's a lot of people that picked up pairs from imports this year. There's a lot of people trying. So, give it 10 years and you'll have a handful of people producing here or there, one or so here and there. I think no problem for sure.
I heard something recently, and I don't remember where it was that I heard it, about people talking about African rock pythons again. I'll hear blurbs about them just kind of here and there about people trying to breed them in captivity. What are your kind of thoughts on that?
That's a big, dangerous snake. But
that's why I brought it up because they have a similar.
But we can't get any more, right? What's here is here.
Yeah, I don't think you can get imports anymore. There are still people breeding them, and there's people working a patternless project I've seen. And I think there's
Bob Clarkson on that too.
Yeah, and I think there's a place for them in the hobby, but they should be kept by the people who have worked with big snakes before. Because, I mean, I guess like anything, they have a reputation that precedes them, so it's probably not deserving for all of the individuals. I'm sure there are sweet Afrocs, but we all know that when there's
shit.
Yeah, we know that there's a thing to them, so it's just
because
that's a snake that kills people too.
Yeah,
that's what I was gonna say. The reality of that snake to me is that if and when it decides that it wants to end your life, there's no.
Well, I mean, it's arguably 3, 4, 5. Largest snake on the planet, 3, 4, 5, somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's
top 5.
There
top 5.
Yeah, it's
for sure
in the top 5.
Yeah, you've got your retics, your anacondas, your Afrocs, your Indian rock pythons, Burms,
yeah,
Kinghorny over in Australia, the scrubs, and Apodora. I mean, those are your top 7 right there.
Yeah.
So,
and
all of pythons,
the Afrocs are they're known.
Dude,
to
that's
have,
that's a big animal.
Yeah.
And to clarify, because that was the thing that I thought was interesting, because you mentioned it in your video that so many people call the Papuans, what do they call them? Papuan, and you were saying it's a
Olives.
misnomer.
Olives.
Yeah, they call them Papuan olives. Mm-hmm.
And you were saying they're not even remotely related.
Well, the
No.
Apodora
There's just
doesn't
some
even have any
crossover there.
subspecies or anything. Like the Apodora is
Right.
the only. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a monotypic genus, and they've bounced around in nomenclature as far as what the genus they've been assigned to over the last century. They've bounced around from Liasis to other things, but olive pythons, Australian olives, are Liasis olivaceus, and Apodoras are Apodora papuana. So they're not even in the same genus. But I mean, that's where you got to know scientific names when you're getting into unique species, because common names can be very misleading.
Yeah.
So yeah, but they're completely different.
Yeah.
Not even like you don't keep them the same. They're different.
Yeah,
So.
and that's why I wanted to bring it up, because that was interesting to me. Because again, just like somebody trying to get into it and find some information, the most of the YouTube searches still actually said Papuan olive python.
They bring up olives.
The majority, brought up olives, and then also brought up Papuan carpets, which I know is obviously a totally different deal.
Yeah.
But again, just like as somebody that's new and completely clueless to them, I could see it easily becoming confusing.
Very confusing.
Thanks for the support, John Feely, man. You're always here for us. And be careful in that storm. It's going to affect us too up here in Arkansas, man. I know that there was like 100 and something car pile up in DFW. So be careful down there, bro.
Yeah.
Love you always, John.
Be careful, brother. Love you, dude. But yeah, so like I said, again, because even me being somewhat educated on various snake species, I'm like getting into it as a new person. I was like, oh shit, I can easily see this being confusing to people. When you just slap Papuan in front of everything. So
yeah,
which I understand is why, like you were saying, people use a scientific name, because it's a lot more clear.
Oh yeah. It's just another fun thing to learn. That's all.
Yeah, put it on the list.
Yeah, absolutely.
Denton Gallagher said Bob Clark is breeding the patternless rocks. I thought Bob was working.
Yeah, I think I was gonna say I think where I heard it was on it was probably on Chris Eaton's podcast, like an old episode from a couple years ago. So I think I do remember hearing about that. Interesting. I just didn't know, like I said, if there was any kind of updates or anything on that. You guys might know. But,
when this is over, guys, before we get out of the studio part, I want to tell you guys a private funny story about half rocks.
Oh boy.
So remind me of that.
Yeah, like I said, like, there's not much that scares the hell out of me, but if somebody told me they had like an African rock python at their house, they're like, yeah, you want to come over and play with it? I'd probably say yes, but I'd be
definitely
I'd
be there
going into it. I'd be fully prepared to have to call somebody on to help us.
I'd be fully prepared to bleed.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, but am I going to be the only other person there? Because we're going to need a third.
Yeah.
Because when you get into trouble and I have to help, we're going to need a third person that's going to be able to call to get us help when the two of us get, I want to make sure we got layers of protection for this shit.
Right.
You can wear Cusco's snake suit that he wore.
There you go.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh man, I forgot about that episode.
That was the funniest shit ever.
Dude, he needs to bring that back and do like a highlight reel of that or something, because his outfit was hilarious.
The outfit was
like
the best
literally
part.
Just like, all right, I went to Goodwill and I got this leather jacket. It's a lady's jacket, but it was cheap and it's the only one they had. And then I get this motorcycle helmet that I'm gonna put on.
So funny.
Man, I forgot about that. That's so good.
I handled that pied in his quarantine room years ago with bare hands in a tiny little rack.
Yeah. How was it?
I didn't get bit.
I watched Brandon.
Yeah.
Brandon handled that pied by himself.
Brandon almost lost his face.
Pulled the best Matrix move I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Like that thing comes out, came right back at Brandon's face, and Brandon just like pulled the Matrix move on it.
If you go back even earlier, you'll see like a really early video of Brian having me pull the pied out, get her into the tub so we could clean her, and then put her back.
I might have seen it then, because like I said, I know that I've seen all those videos. I've been watching Brian's videos since.
Yeah, it was at least 3 years ago.
Since he still had his racks in the closet.
Yeah, definitely.
And he was using like paper towels as like diffuser.
I remember going and seeing it and trying to like, not look at his wife's clothing in the closet, being like, this is their family stuff. This is over there. So that's right here.
It was literally like they had that big open room, and then he had all those snake enclosures, and it was literally their master bedroom was off to the left side.
Yep.
I remember that. Yeah,
that was fun.
And like I said, that's just seeing it on video, so I can only imagine seeing it in person. You're like, okay, I'm gonna go to the snake stuff that's over here.
Yeah, exactly. Good times.
Oh. No, he's a good dude, man.
He's for sure.
Obviously, he's essentially brought the three of us together because the first time I heard your name obviously was on his channel. So
for sure,
everything kind of comes.
We're not connected by creatures. We're connected by Cusco.
There it is.
Oh hell!
There it is.
For him to pop up. I'm waiting for him to pop up in the damn comment section now. I swear to God, he's like he's Bloody Mary. You say his name one too many times.
Oh yeah, right. Like it's crazy. Like sometimes
it was either last week or the week before. It literally happened where we were talking shit about him in some way or another, and he was like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" I was like, "God damn it!"
And then we were talking about his favorite movie. And like Run, Ronnie, Run, and did somebody say Run, Ronnie, Run? I'm like, God damn it!
That was the moment, and because he had probably like tuned in or something, like pulled it up on his computer and had us running in the background, and somebody did say something about like, and literally the week before, Bradley had said like, oh, I better not say anything about the fact that I haven't seen this because Cusco's gonna be pissed. It's his favorite movie, and he says like anybody that hasn't seen it, he has no time for it.
Has he forced you to watch it, Riley?
No. But he's gonna hear about it now. And
now.
I'm gonna go watch it preemptively.
I'm not kidding. I keep looking at the comments because I'm like,
every time he starts it, I tell him I gotta go to bed. Like I gotta go to sleep.
He hates that. He starts it after you guys are like 8 to 9 whiskeys deep, if not more, because it seems like a good idea. Yeah. But then you let your mind start to slow down and your body not move anymore, and the whiskey does its thing.
And I gotta go to bed.
and I gotta sleep.
Yep.
Yeah, Mindy, you're right. It's like mentioning an Ultramel when I'm around. You're absolutely right. But that's my favorite thing now is to tune into random lives or whatever. And I'll just the same thing. I'll be listening to him in the background. Somebody say something about Ultramel, and I'm like, oh, and I'll just comment that. And it's like, well, I've been here for 3 hours listening to this live, but it'll be funny for people. And Ultramel that and
spook some folks.
Yeah, anyways, pretty much. Literally, people are like, what the fuck is happening? Like, this is real, isn't it? This is a real thing. Like, did somebody text you? Like, what is happening? No. But
Denton Gallagher, Riley asked the question, what's bigger, a pop one or an olive?
Pop one.
Pop one.
Big time.
Because you said they get to be about 14 feet?
Yeah. Like a really big 10-foot olive python might get like 4 or 5 inches in diameter, maybe a little bit more. A big popwin, we're talking like retic size,
And that's what I was gonna ask, because like I said, every snake kind of has different body types, right? And so an 8-foot snake of one type might be different than an 8-foot retic or just whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Because that to me is the biggest difference with like super dwarves. They stay pretty athletic. Lean. In general, through their whole lives. Yeah, I mean, unless you're overfeeding them, then they get fat, and it's very obvious that it's a fat retic.
Sure.
So yeah, I was curious when I heard Poplin's 14 feet. I'm like, yeah, but what's their body type like at 14 feet? I assumed obviously they got to be decently girthy. But I imagine just from what they eat, and again, just looking at that like 1-year-old plus that you have, I'm like, it's got to still be a pretty athletic 14-foot snake.
Yeah, it's not fat by any means. Definitely not like berm thickness or anaconda. No.
Yeah,
like a big athletic retic.
And what about the sexual dimorphism in the pop ones?
I mean, they can be pretty similar in size. Females can be bigger, but males get really big too. So, and them being snake eaters, I think I think in as far as captive husbandry goes, you want them to be the same size. A little male is on the menu, basically. Gotcha. So a female might eat him. So everyone I've talked to or heard, they should be around the same size. So as far as their wild counterparts go, I really couldn't comment. I would expect females to get bigger, but maybe they're one of those animals that, defies all the rules. So,
Yeah.
I just don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
because that's just like black widow spiders, where it's obviously super common that the males just get eaten, and it's almost part of the process. Like to the point that they've even talked about the fact that like the males that allow themselves to get eaten are actually the better breeders, because then the females have more nutrients, the babies are better, and so the bloodline is actually a better bloodline.
And there's a genetic thing to that, like the males. It's almost like the males that go in with the intention of being eaten, like their offspring survive at a higher rate than ones that would. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Dope.
Yeah, Clint did a whole video on it, and his video I actually like because he actually did a full study on it, like a collegiate paper study.
Nice.
Prior to just like, in other words, it wasn't him just like regurgitating somebody else's research, which I think is what I love about Clint's channel in general. But anyways, no, but that's.
Well, I mean, that dude's actually got the science behind it. He's
That's like Riley. That guy, he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
No.
No, but that's why I like talking
Jimison?
to you, because like I
Riley
said, you know kind of the scientific backstory of everything you work with, and you know what I mean? And there's something to be said about that, I think. Like you really dig into anything and everything that you own. Any animal that you have in your racks, like you can pull out and tell me, hey, yeah, here's this snake. And then you can actually tell me like the history of that, like that whole line, that everything about it, like this, that, like more than I even want to know, almost.
That's just what keeps me. It just keeps me going. I just geek out about it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and I'd imagine you're the same way with your spiders and scorpions and stuff as well.
Yes, I love all of that. I love knowing about where they're from, the different like types and how they need to be kept, and the different environments they like, and so much fun, dude. It's so cool.
Well, on that note, you said that your reptile creme de la creme in your collection is your Apodora. What's your tarantula creme de la creme? What's your number one arachnid?
Probably my green bottle blue. I'm a big fan of the GBBs. They grow fast.
That's a fairly dangerous animal.
I think so. I think that's what people tell me.
The reputation,
yeah, they're apparently hot. I mean, they're all venomous, but they're apparently decently hot. But I mean, I handle our slings at the shop all the time. If they come running out on my hand, I'm just like, all right, go back in, sort of thing.
Yeah, you don't have much choice. Yeah.
Yeah, I've handled way gnarlier on accident. I've handled Vietnamese centipedes barehanded to keep them from climbing up walls and getting loose in buildings. I've had Goody sapphires, the P metallicas. I've had a few of those over the years, and I had an adult male jump out of the enclosure and run across the room a couple times. And one time I didn't have a cup, so I actually have a photo of him on my forearm because I caught him up and he ran up my forearm and stopped.
You talked about that on Cusco.
I remember you talking about this. I was gonna say, I've heard this story.
That was really
dumb.
That
doesn't know, from what I understand, P metallicas are nothing to fuck with.
They'll put you in a hospital for sure. Yeah, it's a medically significant venom. So definitely not my finest hour. Always have your catch cups ready when you're working with tarantulas, people. So I was just missing the enclosure, darted out, and I just whoop, there it was. I was like, oh shit.
Reflex.
Photos or it didn't happen. Really dumb. Don't do that if you're listening to me here. But I don't have any of those right now. I just like the GBBs because they're heavy webbers. So it's just a beautiful tarantula that makes up an amazing enclosure full of thick webbing. So
yeah, I feel like that's an interesting thing about keeping tarantulas in general, for the most part, because most of them they're pretty seclusive, right? Like they're reclusive. They want to kind of just like be not visible.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole idea of.
I got one I haven't seen in 4 months.
Yeah. But I tend to be drawn the same way because it's like you're mostly keeping an enclosure, that you're pretty
A
sure
hole
has
of
an
dirt.
animal in it. You hope.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yep.
But so those the ones that keep those real crazy heavy webs, it's almost like that's really more
It's fun,
the
man.
appreciation.
It's cool to see them do their thing.
Just that. And they're
Yeah.
super simple. You don't
Yeah.
have to offer them too much. You just
Nope.
you throw some bugs in there. Period. Like, how often are you feeding? Again, I'm not looking for a general care guide for all terrain.
No more than
stuff,
once a week, but usually every week or two, I'll throw something their way and refresh their water. And depending on the species, some need more humidity constantly, some don't. So just depends.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, that's freaking cool. I think we lost Bradley's battery on his camera as my best guess from what it sounds like. It's all good.
Oh, he's
but
back.
yeah, I mean, like I said,
I'm prepared these days, guys. I keep 2 batteries on.
He's got a second
100%.
battery ready to
go. I fucked that up before, Riley, to where I wasn't even involved in the last 30 minutes of our show. It was with who was it? With Brian and Kathy Farley. Like Brian and Kathy Farley. I was gone for the last 30 minutes. It was one of our early ones.
Yeah,
that's
Bradley
okay.
Literally, and he had texted me, and I keep my phone right here in case I need to check stuff, and I didn't get the text, but he had texted me like 20 minutes before his battery died, like, "Hey man, we probably need to wrap up. My battery's dying." And I literally, I just kept going, and I didn't even check my phone until the episode was over, and I was like, "Oh yeah, we went like 45 minutes after your battery died on your camera."
That's okay. I had a friend on a podcast once there was just a bunch of us, and I was just drinking beers, and it was late, and I ended up falling asleep. But we went 4 hours, so fell asleep.
We just hit the 2-hour mark right now. So.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
we did.
I know, that's
Look
what
at that.
At.
I haven't even broken the seal yet, and
oh man, like right? I'm good.
Yeah, so that's what we were talking about, prior to starting. We're like, shit, this is gonna be one of those ones where we blink our eyes, and then we're still gonna have stuff that we wanted to ask Riley about.
Well, we can always do a round 2.
Go ahead, Riley. What were you gonna say?
I definitely want to do a round 2. Like, there's been several people that I wanted to do a round 2 with, and you're definitely going to be one of them. But something I do want to touch on this one before we get out of here is the thumbnail, the picture that we used in the thumbnail. Like, I mean, we've talked about snakes, we've talked about crocodilians, man. Like, hit us up with like, because I know you've had time. You went and had time to research and like study and learn about crocodilians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've worked with a few species in my years in zoos. American alligators, Chinese alligators, both types of dwarf came in. The Schneider's smooth front and the what's the other common name? Yeah, Cuvier's dwarf came in, and then I've worked with. Oh, what else have I worked with? I've had the opportunity to briefly work with Cubans, Orinoco's, Siamese, and a few other things, but it's mostly been like while I've been at like a work conference or some professional training courses. So in zoos, I worked with some of the less crazy stuff, but had the pleasure of going out to St. Augustine Alligator Farm for Croc School in 2016. And I have a whole certificate on the wall from that. But the photograph in the thumbnail is me holding a 4-year-old Tomistoma, which is a super, super rare species of false gharial, is another common name for them because they have that slender snout. And that was a crazy life experience for me because I was out there for like 9-10 days in Florida and just getting hands-on with every single possible species of crocodile, possible catching techniques, egg management, breeding, feeding, everything, research class, like the whole 9. It was basically a collegiate level course crammed into 9 days, and everything you could know about crocodilians, seeing them in a facility, going out to Payne's Prairie, seeing alligators in the wild, going to University of Florida and seeing their lab stuff, and then getting hands-on at the farm. And it was amazing, absolutely amazing. And I love working with crocodilians. That's the one thing I probably won't get to do in California, not being in zoos anymore. So
yeah,
there's nothing like them. There's no other animal like them, period.
Have you ever like the gharials? Have you ever messed with any of those? Like they've always been the ones that have been like super captivating to me when I see them, just because of that
The teeth.
that cranial structure. Like it's insane. What species of Garioles have you ever messed with?
So again, at Croc School, I got to go into the enclosure and kind of see a bit what they do with their Gariole and how they care for them and learn how they breed them. Because when I was there, they actually pulled a clutch from a female, and it ended up containing the one egg that hatched out for the first Gariole hatched out of its native range and habitat.
What I tell you, Riley, speak of the devil.
There he is. Grant he can get a permit, but his insurance is going to go up a couple grand a year, and I don't think he's going to let me do that. That's why I said,
damn it, because literally, it's like, motherfucker. Cusco, we were just talking about the fact that we had said your name too many damn times. You were going to pop in here any second. We were talking about your favorite movie and everything. We're like,
there goes the neighborhood. Cusco's here.
All right. Well, it's been 2 hours, guys. Let's call it quits.
Yeah.
No, but anyway,
so
you
the
said
permits
there
are
was
available,
one
but
egg
the
in
insurance
the
is the
Gariole.
Yeah, so they pulled a whole clutch, and one of those eggs ended up hatching and being the only Gariole that's ever been hatched outside of its native range. So I got to see that little stinker as an egg, and now it's on display at the alligator farm there, and they've got their process a little more dialed in, and I got to see how they figured that out, and the big sand wall that they use for the female's nesting time. And dude, those things are amazing. They're huge. They get like 14, 15 feet, and that snout can be like, 3 feet long, and they're just amazing. They're amazing animals, primarily fish eaters. They do a lot of side swiping, which is why that narrow snout provides very minimal resistance, so they can grab fish underwater. And they're just, dude,
man,
perfection.
I can't remember if it was Dallas, Fort Worth, or if it was Houston. But one of the two has a huge Gariole. I wish I could remember so I could tell you guys to go check it out. But it's either Dallas, Fort Worth, or it's Houston. And you come across this little, it's really heavily they have a ton of foliage right here in the area. And you walk over a little bridge, and when you walk over the bridge, you kind of have to look off a ways to see it. And at first, and it was Lainey, it was my daughter that was like, "Dad, look at that!" And I was like, "Oh shit!" I sure hope that we get a better vantage point to see this thing. And when you first walk in, you go to the left, and there you can actually see it. And like you said, man, this is a 13, 14 foot. It's a serious animal, man. And that snout is, it's every bit the size of my chest to the tip of my fingers, 3 feet, 4. It's crazy. And
they're amazing.
I don't really. I've been to a lot of zoos and stuff, and there's very few places that I've been that actually have them. There's a few aquariums that have gar species fish, whether it's spotted gar or alligator gar fish, but you don't actually see the Garioles very often. They're super cool animals.
They're like nothing else on the planet, dude. They're really cool. Really cool crocs. Big. And the women at St. Augustine Alligator Farm are badasses for working with everything there.
It's funny that you said that, because when we first started this, and earlier you had mentioned the St. Augustine, my mom texted me because she was watching, and my sister recently moved to Florida for work, and my sister lives 2 blocks from the St. Augustine alligator. So I'm definitely going to have to make a trip over there.
You need to go. It's the only place in the country you can see all the species in one place.
Yeah, definitely going to have to check that out.
Yeah, it's dope. Good folks there. Really good folks.
But anyways, guys, I had assured Riley that I wouldn't hold him too long. So I'm super appreciative of the fact that he's given us 2 hours and 10 minutes of his time. If there's any questions or any comments you want to make for Riley before we get out of here, please go ahead and type those in real quick. And
hey, Brian, stop eating ice cream. Brian, what are you doing eating ice cream?
He's addicted, man.
I'm gonna tell Hillary.
Dude, I'm not gonna lie. I've been eating because I dry January was a long fucking dry January. Tonight was the first beers that I've had, for the record.
Woo!
I want to clear the air.
Nice.
People are going to ask, like, Zach, are you still doing dry January?
Nope.
I kept it going until now, until literally today was the first beer that I've had since December 31st.
Good for you.
And I've been drinking or eating a whole lot of fucking ice cream. I'm not gonna lie. I literally like switched one fucking addiction for the next, and I was literally eating like fucking 2 bowls of ice cream a fucking day for the last like 2 months or whatever. So almost 2 months.
Nice, Brian. Your wife's an enabler.
I don't blame you then, Cusco.
Yeah, no doubt. Hillary's
At
enabling.
least she baked the cookies, so the cookies were probably like
they're
all
fire.
natural, like good badass ingredients.
Mhm.
I'm sure they were amazing.
Oh no!
Oh man!
But so
That
guys,
sounds great.
before we get out of here, I have a special announcement to make. Zach and I will be doing a special edition of Connected by Creatures on Monday. I know that
This coming Monday.
our scheduled time is always on Fridays, and we're not going to skip next Friday. There's just a special show going to be Monday, and we're going to have Bruce Saunders of BHB in the Reptarium on Monday. So everybody spread the word about that. We'll get the link up here really soon.
Do we know, is Bruce also bringing on his significant other, I think?
There's a chance. I was just talking to Bruce earlier, and he said that Jessica hasn't given him a 100% yet, but she definitely knows about it. Yeah, Bruce. So possibly both. But Bruce, 100%, Bruce will be here Monday night. Jessica's 50-50 right now. But guys, awesome. Let us definitely come in Monday. You want to see that. Bruce has got all kinds of cool animals that, outside of the cool shit that he's doing with Barcheck and at the BHB and the Reptarium. Bruce is an awesome keeper. Like, he has all kinds of venomous stuff. Like, they have really cool animals. And he's a cool ass guy. Like, I've had the opportunity to hang out with him and talk to him, and like, I can't wait to bring him on here. Like, he's going to be awesome.
Could be way better than this episode with Riley for sure.
Yeah.
Part 2 with Riley should be okay. No, but no, seriously, we're definitely going to bring you back, Riley Lemon. This has been an absolute blast, and like I said, you proved Bradley and I both right, because we both knew that we were going to blink our eyes and this was going to be over, and only over from a standpoint of like, people are only going to watch for so long, so we got to cut it into a couple parts. But we're definitely going to have you back on, man. It's been a fucking blast. Every animal we ask you about, you can talk for hours on. We already know it, and in all seriousness, we appreciate that. I appreciate that. I know that our guests, that everybody down in the comments appreciates that same thing. That's why they're here. And thank you again for your time, man. And all of those out there, I appreciate you guys. I'll let Bradley close it out with our closing statement, as always.
Riley, any last thing you want to say?
Man. Thank you guys. You guys kick ass.
All right. Man, Riley, thank you so much. Thank everybody for coming here, and we love you all. Anybody that feels that they are connected by creatures.